Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Lynn Sanders, your story marketer, and I'm the host of the Difference Makers show. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for taking time to join us. We have a very special guest today, and I'll be giving you his introduction in just a moment. But first, I want to invite you to share who you are and where you're hanging out from in the comment box that you'll see on the screen. I'm very grateful to have Rain Dowell with us today, who is my wing woman, helping us with sharing your comments. And our guest today is Dale Spencer. As you may know, if you have tuned in before, or maybe you don't know, this show is all about sharing inspirational, motivational, and empowering stories to help each of you be able to achieve your highest potential. And today we're going to be talking about overcoming fears through the story that Dale will be sharing with us today. And that, I'm going to give you a little bit of his background. Dale was just like any other ordinary college student until the age of 20 when he encountered a preventable accident that he's going to share with us that caused him to be paralyzed. I met Dale actually at a Chicago conference several months ago, and I noticed that everybody seemed attracted to be around him. He had a great energy. And because of that, I was very intrigued to learn more about him. Because, you know, we all can make a positive impact in the world. It's really how we think about ourselves and what we do with what we have within us. So Dale decided to start all over and have a positive attitude. And he's going to share with us how he overcame his fears to rise to the top of his profession. Dale is a professional speaker, an award-winning film producer, and also he's won a number of other business awards. I'll share a few of them with you. He had a whole long list. He is the chairman of the Voices for Injury Prevention, VIP, from 2008 till currently. He's the recipient of the 2008 National VIP of the Year for outstanding commitment and contribution to injury prevention. He is in 2012 appointed for the Dean's Advisory Council for the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. And also, he was appointed to the National Board of Directors of Think First National Injury Prevention Foundation from 2006 to the current time. Welcome, Dale. So great to have you here.
Thanks for having me here. I appreciate it, Lynn.
My pleasure. And Rain, do you see any comments? Because I had some technical problems today, so unfortunately you're not seeing my lower third, everyone. I'm Lynn Sanders, should say Difference Makers show. Do you have some people that you can share with us who may be on the screen at this moment? Rain. And if you're there, please don't be shy. If you wanted to share us your name and where you're hanging out from. I can't hear you, Rain. Oh, thank you.
There we do. And we've got Elaine Nieberding, and she was more talking. If you want to go ahead and pin me, white box me if you can, Lynn, and that way Elaine's...
Okay.
Elaine,
there we go.
Yeah, and she's saying, perky promo, Lynn Sanders, love it.
Thank you. Okay.
And we've also got Virginia Sanders, and she's saying... Parsons, I'm sorry. She says, hanging out from Reno. She says, you need to unpin Dale so we can see you. So
Okay.
I'm not sure if you've got Dale white boxed or not, but you can go ahead and unwhite box me and make sure you're unwhite boxed and everything.
Thank you all for helping me with your technical expertise. There we go. Me. I think we're unpinned. So Dale, you there?
Yep.
Great.
You've done a couple of things to make sure that I am as prepared as possible, because that's part of overcoming fear.
That's right. We all have to go through challenges to get to where we're going. Thank you. So, Ray, if you see any others, you can put your hand up and we'll invite you to share some comments. And please feel free, everyone. That's the beauty, I love this, of Google Hangouts and Air, if you're new to this, is not only is it a chance for us to communicate our stories and make a positive impact, but we can engage with each other. That's the fun of it, and learn from each other.
And no holds barred, because that's part of what I talk about. I want to make sure that there is as much transparency as possible. So please ask anything you want.
Great. Okay. So let's start out, Dale. Can you share with us, what was your life like before your injury?
Well, I was able-bodied for about 20 years before my injury happened, and I was a very active young man. I did a lot of sports. I did the wrestling, the baseball, the football, basketball, probably not the most coordinated person on the planet, yet I wanted to really excel at a lot of these sports. Not only that, but I also was a proficient horseback rider too.
Wow. So would you mind sharing with us what happened?
Sure, and I think it goes back where the things that I did, and I learned in life that everything cannot be a rash decision because there's always ramifications, consequences, and results as due to the causes of what happened in my life. And so that was the attitude that I took. And it accumulated to some choices that I made. And one of the choices, like a lot of us do in our youth, we do a lot of things to put ourselves in harm's way, not thinking about the consequences. That being said, I was at Northern Illinois University, which is about an hour and a half west of Chicago. It was in my junior year. It was right before finals, and I was out with some friends, doing some fraternity things, and on the way back from the house, or I'm sorry, from these activities, we were on our way to a party. And on the way to the party, we decided to take a shortcut to go down some railroad tracks, somewhere obviously nobody shouldn't have been in the first place, but again, not thinking that, okay, if we go on the tracks, we could possibly be in harm's way. Didn't even think about it. So there was about 5 or 6 of us. And we started walking on the tracks. It was about 1 o'clock in the morning. We were spread apart. Couldn't see in front of us because it's a very poorly lit area. We come upon a railroad trestle, and for those who don't know what a trestle is, it's, you know, when you drive under the viaducts and it's the one that the trains go over, that's a trestle. I'm walking across the one set of tracks. I slipped and I fell over the tracks because there was actually no barriers and there was an opening in the middle. Fell over the side and fell about, I would say, 4 stories into a very shallow river.
Oh my gosh.
It was only about 1.5 feet deep, so I was actually partially submerged.
You were partially, so your head was above the water and your body was below the water.
Correct, and
oh my gosh, what time of the day was this?
Oh, this is about 1 o'clock in the morning. It's very late, and
oh my gosh.
What saved me was the fact that I was conscious. Because you know, when you ever have a traumatic experience, such as a car crash, a fall, or a bike-related, motorcycle-related injury, a lot of people don't regain consciousness for minutes, hours, weeks, perhaps even months. In my case, as soon as I hit the ground, my eyes were open. So I had to first process the whole fact of, okay, I'm laying in the ground, I'm looking up at tracks, and a moment ago I was walking and looking down on tracks, so I had to process that. Number 2, I'm in water, and it was about 35 degrees out, so it was freezing. I tried to move. There was a very sharp, acute pain down my back. Felt for my legs, they were completely numb. I knew at that moment that I could not get out of that situation myself. So I yelled out to my friends. I don't even know if I yelled for 30 seconds, a minute, 5 minutes, half hour. Finally, by listening to my voice, they followed it and they found me.
Wow.
Now, one good thing that they did was, and of course this is what you should do if somebody has or is suspected having a back injury, last thing you do is touch them. So they knew not to even approach me. They asked me some questions. I told them what happened, and they knew I was serious, so they immediately ran to a nearby house, to banged on the door, asked the homeowner to use the phone to call an ambulance to come on over to get me.
Wow. So you didn't know what had happened, and you were really lucky that your friends found you right away to at least get the ambulance.
I would have been a dead man. No lie.
It's even miraculous you could have not lived through that. So that was, you know, a chance for you to be here.
Agreed.
So what was it like afterwards? I mean, can you share a little more with what happened, you know, at the hospital and afterwards? How did this affect you in your relationships?
Well, the ambulance came over. Paramedics approached me. They knew I had sustained a back injury. They didn't want to cause further damage, so what they did was, with protocol, they collared my neck, put a flat board underneath me, put me into the ambulance, and brought me over to a local community hospital. Now, since my back injury was so severe, that they just didn't have the capabilities of taking care of me. So what they did was they transported me by helicopter to Northwestern Memorial Hospital. Now,
Wow.
on the way there, and I remember that every microsecond that transpired, there was a female paramedic taking my vitals, my blood pressure, my pulse. She was also giving me this pin poking test, just a simple test, poking to see where I felt and where I didn't feel. Now, I tell my audiences I never understood or thought and conceptualized what a spinal cord injury was. I just didn't. I'm thinking to myself at that moment that my back, my body was in shock. I lost the feeling, but it's going to come back later that night. It's maybe a day or two, and that's it. Well, I demanded that she would do this pin poking test every couple of minutes because I was convinced that the level of injury would go down lower and lower and lower my leg. Well, the closer we came to Northwestern, the more bleak the situation because that level of injury didn't move.
Wow. Oh my.
So they brought me to the emergency room, did the test of a battery of test exams, x-rays, and it was conclusive that I did have a spinal cord injury. Now, what happened was when I fell, I landed on my feet, and that snapped my back forward, and the bone, which is called thoracic 12, smashed right into the spinal cord.
I see.
To this day, there's no cure for spinal cord injuries. At that point, I mean, they needed to get me into the operation room right away. It was about an 11-hour operation, and the doctors did what they could. They couldn't even go near the spinal cord because they were worried about causing further damage. So they took bone fragments from my lower left leg, my right hip, and they formed into the bone and into the spinal column, and then put a couple of 12-inch titanium rods. Now, I want to circle back to your question about relationships and so forth because that was the physical part of the situation. And it was honestly because it was the most painful, my body-wise, but it was a fraction of the pain that I dealt with as the mental part of it and the emotional part of it.
Right.
I always talk about when situations come up like this, support groups are so incredibly important. My parents were there. They met me at the hospital. I mean, they got the call middle of the night saying your son is severely injured. You got to get down to the hospital right away. I wouldn't want any parent to deal with something like that.
Of course.
So it hurts me to this day, and I feel tremendously guilty because of what I put these people through. And so that's part of my message that, you know, we need to take care of ourselves, but when something happens to us, it not only affects me per se, it affected the people that were close in my life. And I cherish these relationships, and again, I say it hurts because I really hurt these people. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I understand. You know, so you went through so much, I mean, beyond, I would say, what everybody has challenges in their life, and I think the hard thing is, so how do you get out of that emotional, mental, spiritual rut or terrible pit and be able to lift yourself up? What were the steps you took? Because it was, I would think that's about as devastating as you could get unless you weren't alive anymore, if you lose your freedom to move.
Yeah, we could look at where I was on. I'm on this side of the grass, so that's
Right, you want to share, jump in? Go ahead.
Yeah, I do, because especially when Dale was talking about his family and how important family support was. And if you'd like to white box,
Yes.
me, Lynn, Virginia Parsons says, powerful story, reminiscent of my daughter's fall off of the high dive. So sounds like Virginia had a similar incident.
Yeah, Virginia, you can relate. I mean, some of the feelings that you have when you got that call, or if you were even there, what to do because your daughter was in such a harrowing situation. I hope she's doing better now, and I'm not sure if it was a preventable injury or not, but you know, we take a lot of risks that are unneeded, and you as a parent can only give your sons and daughters enough tools for them to make the right decisions. We're the ones, no pun intended, we have to walk the walk. And one of the things that I do is I talk with an organization called Think First Injury Prevention. Shameless plug time. You can go to thinkfirst.org, and we talk about preventing injuries by making sound choices. So we go to high schools and middle schools and talk about our youth because Virginia, you as a parent, you're not a helicopter parent hovering over your daughter 24 hours a day. And so you can only give them as much advice as possible. They have to learn through life experience on their own the other time that they're not with you. So.
Dale, I know Virginia's story, and maybe the two of you can connect afterwards. In fact, I forgot to mention this at the beginning, but anyone listening here, after the show is over, I want to invite you to stay on the broadcast after I stop the recording, and you'll have a chance to come into this green room and talk to people to not only regain consciousness but end up having no injury at all, even after she had a very unusual fall off a high diving board. So, we all have our stories, and I think there's lessons that we all can learn from them. So I'd like to focus on what steps you took to overcome your fears, because we're all facing fears, all the time. What tips can you give us on what you went through?
And by the way, before I get into that part, Rain, I thought that was a great idea of white boxing the comment because, we're working this show organically, and so some things that come up that bring up different stories that I wouldn't necessarily talk about when it comes to a Q&A between myself and Lynn. So this is great. I love the way this format is. So, sorry, I digress. Thumbs up. Good times. So, steps. It's not an overnight thing. I had to learn as the days went on. I mean, I went through, if people can Google Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, if you haven't heard of her already, where she actually developed the steps of, I think it's 5 stages of grief, the anger, denial, depression, bargaining, acceptance. And so I was going through all of those stages, but I had the underlying foundation that there were things that I still needed to do with my life, even though I was, in rehab, in a very intensive rehab process. I was in bed for a good 12 hours a day, and if I wasn't, I was specifically in physical therapy, occupational therapy, psychological therapy, wheelchair classes, etc., to try to give me the tools to get outside, to get back to school, and so forth. There's a lot of physical things that I needed to do, especially in a ADA world, and that's an acronym for American with Disabilities Act, because this happened in 1989. That law didn't pass till 1990. So they had to prepare me, meaning the therapist, to get around in not such a wonderfully accessible world. But that was only one step of it. The other steps were mentally and emotionally, and the things that I can do to really develop that support group, to really have people have my back, to really go out on my own, to try to get a thick skin, because everybody that I have dealt with in friendships and other relationships in my life, I'm the only one with the visible disability. So how are people going to react with me? So that was a component that I really had to work on too. And it was great through rehab because it all came down to specific micro goals that I had in life. From the moment I had to get up in the morning to the moment I had to go to bed, I had to learn how to do things differently. So that actually segued into other aspects of my life to try to utilize those goals. Where do I start? Well, I start from the beginning, and devil's in the details, and trying to be prepared for any type of tasks in order to achieve a goal. That all came from rehab. So there was a lot of preparation in order to get to the next step in my life.
Wow. And how did it affect your relationships? Did you find that your relationships were deeper because people were relating to you at a different level?
There's a lot of different stories when it came to the relationships afterwards, because I had friendships beforehand. A lot of guys and girls had treated me like they treated me before, but there was other people that were very awkward. And how awkward meaning, how do they approach me? Are they going to say the right thing? Are they going to embarrass themselves? Are they going to embarrass me? Or maybe they're not going to approach me at all, which actually happened with my best friend. And
Really?
about a month or two afterwards, he blew me off, and he was vapor, and it hurt me tremendously. However,
So another level of grief for you.
oh, it was grief at the same time. Now, short-term struggles, long-term gains, because the short-term struggle was I lost my best friend, but it was probably one of the best things that could have ever happened to me because I realized at that point I knew who was there for me. So when you talk about relationships in your lives, it's not all about hanging out or having a couple of drinks or just talking about old days. It's depending and relying on each other and being there for each other. That is true friendship and family.
Right, connection of the heart. That's what you're saying. That's where it all starts. It's not just, as you say, just going off to get a few drinks. It's
true.
How deeply you care about people.
It's true.
So in our remaining time, can you share with us some tips that we can use from what you've learned? Because I'm sure this experience obviously affected your career choice because now you go around speaking about overcoming fears. So what are tips?
And you know, I'm not a speaker by trade. I tell you, in fact, before my injury, I would seriously blank out in front of a 30-person class in an introductory communications class. We'd talk about something as simple as making a sandwich. 30 seconds into it, I'd blank out and I'd have to sit back down, get a 0 for the test. So this injury not only helped me about my goals and my relationships, but also the certain levels of success in my life. Now, I can't be doing a speech from the hip. There's got to be a lot of preparation involved. But there's also an element of not worrying about what other people are thinking about me. And that had to do with coming back to school right after the injury or right after rehab itself, because I thought I had thick skin, and I mentioned that before. But all of a sudden, you go into a campus that's about 25,000 students, and there's not too many people that have visible disability, so everybody's looking at you. I wanted to go back to my apartment in my fraternity house and not come back out ever again. And so it took time for me to get used to myself and my own skin in order to go to class, in order to cultivate my existing relationships, make new friendships, dating, all of that stuff. There was a whole complexity of comfort that I had to work on a daily basis. That spilled over to my professional life too. And I was mentioning about ADA, American Disabilities Act. A lot of places did not have accessibility, so there were stairs instead of ramps going up to the place. What I have to do is I'd have to take my old Delta 88 Oldsmobile, drive to the gas station, and use those, you know, those antiquated phones. They're probably Smithsonian now. Yeah, you call up and you know, call them up and say, hey, you know what? I have a resume because I'm going to fill out a job application. Can you meet me outside and I can fill it out and give it back to you? It's all about getting from point A to point B and what steps that you need to take in order to get that end prize. And I have my mom. I have my mom to thank for that, because she was the nurture side of the mother, but she was also tough love, because as soon as I graduated, she told me, okay, you know what? Now you know what your deal is now? You're living under my roof, but you're going to pay rent, and you got to get a job. And take a guess what your job is. Your job is to get a job. And so it was one of those summers, this was back in '91, so it was the job market, not unlike this, was really not that great. The difference was in the summer, every other day was literally between 95 and 100 degrees. So I had a full suit on. I'm sweating my butt off, but I was out there a good 5 to 8 hours a day, hammering the streets. I would say beat the streets, but basically rolling the streets and really trying to get a job. That was a funny.
Yeah, from your wheelchair, you're rolling the streets.
Just checking if everybody's listening. So it's all about point A to point B. I had to get a job, and it took 4 months, and I was able to get something in the real estate field. And so I've been actually working in real estate for about 23 years. A couple of years later, I joined an organization which I just mentioned a little bit before in this conversation called Think First. And so I go to high schools and middle schools to talk about preventing spinal cord injuries and traumatic brain injuries by making sound choices. Okay, so I've been doing that for 20 years. You mentioned on the accolades when you introduced me about the National Board of Directors. So I not only go to the schools, but I actually affect national policy when it comes to our organization, which is just a wonderful responsibility, and the people that I have met, and it just warms my heart, and I call them my second family. These are good people, and they're really there for such a sole and consolidated cause. So, '94 I started, and fast forward to 2011, this was the result of the real estate debacle. The underwriting standards got very stringent. I'm thinking to myself, okay, you know what mortgage is, because I'm a mortgage banker. I'm good at it. a great database. However, am I following my passion in life? And passion is so important, but not passion alone. Passion with focus can get you a heck of a lot farther than just passion itself, because passion can be misguided. So you really have to have that laser focus, and that's an integral part of what I talk about to my audiences when it comes to following your passion, but actually take a practical and pragmatic approach to build on that success, to build on the foundation, put those building blocks together, and reach those levels of success. And so that's what I did. I had an epiphany while I was out in Park City downhill skiing. And believe it or not, I do downhill ski. So for the folks there, yeah, it's a blast. Google mono ski, and you'll get the whole gist of what I do down the mountains.
I can't imagine. How do you do downhill skiing?
Well, if I did it in this chair, I'd sink in about 5 feet. So it's actually a mono ski, just very quickly. It's a form-fitting chair where I sit in. They strap my chest, they strap my feet, and then what I do is I have a shock absorber that's on the bottom of the device itself with a ski in the bottom, and then 2 poles, or they call outriggers, with small skis in the bottom, and that's how you go back and forth.
Amazing.
Very tough to do. It's so funny because you want to talk about irony. I skied before, and I was a horrible skier, and now I'm skiing and I'm good.
That's amazing.
Think about that. So, but you know why that reason is, and I'm not bragging, because back then, about that rash decision, I wanted to go down the mountain, and I didn't want anybody to tell me how to do it. I could do it myself. So now, as a skier who is disabled, I elicit the help of not only my buddy, but also my instructor and volunteer to constantly work on the mechanics, to build on that level of skiing, because I want to get good, really good. And I love it. I'm obsessed with the sport, and it's wonderful. So I had the epiphany while I was out there in 2011. And I heard about keynote speakers making good money. Now, the first question for anybody opening a business or starting a business should be why. Now, money to me is means to an end, and it's important. It's how we live. It's literally like number 6 or 7 on my list. I mean, my why was helping other people, building on that injury prevention piece through Think First and really affecting other people's lives. And that's why I started. That was my first why. And I've been building on it ever since. And, 2014, I've incorporated it actually about a little over a year and a half ago. And I've been just receiving tremendous visibility and some accolades. And it's been a wonderful ride so far. I've enjoyed it.
Wonderful. Tell us some of the groups you speak to. Okay,
so I've been speaking to on Think First. I've spoken to probably about 60 to 70,000 students to this date.
Wow.
Injury prevention is really important. However, it's not relatable to all audiences. And so for me to be marketable out there, I needed to morph it into a message that no matter it was the students or people that were heads of corporations can relate to. And that's why I morphed it into overcoming fear. I feel that me overcoming fear in the ways that I did it, with the focus, with the persistence, with the goal setting, with the support group, those incredibly important elements that I utilize to overcome that fear, I think it's something that I could share and to serve others to help them in their everyday lives, no matter if it was fear of loss, fear of, say, divorce, reconciliation, success, failure, abandonment. And for corporations, how do they build their revenue? How do they grow? How do they empower? How do they change? Yeah.
That's wonderful. You've tapped on an element that we all have in common, fear. And how do we handle fear? Because I think no one can ever say we'll get rid of fear entirely. It's about how do we handle it? What do we do with it? And as you have shown, you take the steps, whatever it takes, to get your way to the finish line, whether it's handing a resume to someone or skiing down a mountain.
There's devils in the details focus, but you always have to keep your eye on the prize. And for me, and this is for all business owners, there are 2 elements of business where you have to work in your business, and you have to have the 30,000-foot level, meaning working on your business. Where is it now? And looking it down and that 30,000-foot level, where you need it to be in a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, and exactly what steps you need to take. Now, I don't have all the answers, I got to tell you. I've actually hired a business coach for some time each month to work on my time management skills, on my daily goals, because I know where I'm at now and I know where I need to be in 3 years or 5 years. It's the daily goals that I need to accomplish in order to get to those long-term strategic goals. And so that is part of my support group. I've brought in a business development firm. I have people working for me. I mean, not even for me, with me, because I do believe it's a team. So it's doing some great, solid people on my team.
You know, we're coming to the end of our show, so I wanted just to wrap up with any last-minute tips. And Rain, also, if you have any other comments you'd like to share from our audience, feel free. Some other, last-minute suggestion or tips that people can use, Dale, to work on getting through their fears. You can repeat or reinforce what you said before, and then we'll invite people to come into our green room. So any closing thoughts to help people go through their fear and rise to their top?
Check the ego at the door. We're not experts at everything. When it comes to our personal and professional lives, we are we have mastery at certain things, and the things that we don't have mastery at, we need to utilize other people's help for our support groups. Remember, every goal has certain pragmatic steps to achieve that goal. Again, devil's in the details. You can't just wish it being done or you want it done yesterday. There are certain steps that you need to take, and you need to write it down. In fact, I'm almost OCD when it comes to lists. I mean, I'm all about lists. Get it done, and make sure that I have certain parts of my day, whether it be the blogging, which I need to be more consistent on. That's one of my struggles. Social media. It's all about visibility, because my mission statement, and by the way, the why. My mission statement is to build my my keynote speaking business onto a global stage to help people overcome fear in every aspect of their lives. So when you're working on any type of goals within your business per se, you need to have that mission statement in front of you, because every decision that you make has got to be congruent with that message, and I think that's incredibly important. And in order to get to that mission statement, you really need to have your set of goals in order to do that. Now, when it comes to actual fear itself, simple steps. I mean, analyze the fear, approach it, really think into it and how you're going to develop not only a plan B, but plan A, but plan B, plan C, D, and all the way to Z, and whatever comes after that too. Execute it and get through it. Because you know what? We need to always get ourselves out of the comfort zone. It gives us a thrill, and I truly believe it's fuel for success. And one quote I'd like to say before we go to the green room is, the only limitations that we have in life are self-imposed. So keep that in mind. We hold ourselves back from accomplishing so much.
And please, Dale, before we conclude here, tell everyone how they can find you. What's your website? What's your contact information?
Thank you. A couple of things. A lot of people do Twitter. That's the handle is D Spencer Fear Not. Facebook is Dale J. Spencer. Website, simple, www.dalespencer.com.
Would you like to repeat that one more time?
Yes, the Twitter handle, D Spencer Fear Not. Facebook, Dale J. Spencer. And the website is www.dalespencer.com.
And you are available for speaking engagements on overcoming and dealing with fear.
You got it, not only locally, nationally, and internationally too.
Terrific. And Rain, do you have any last-minute thoughts yourself or from our listeners or viewers?
I've got, I put the website Dale talked about, thinkfirst.org, put that in the comments.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
You're welcome. And I went out and looked at a picture of what mono-skiing looks like, because I'm a downhill skier, so in cross country. So, and I haven't actually seen mono skiing. So I grabbed a picture. So I'm going to put a picture in the comment stream about what mono skiing looks like.
Go to YouTube too, because you can see a lot of YouTube videos of people going down the mountains. Pretty wild stuff.
Fantastic. Wow. That's awesome.
Great. I'm very grateful for your help. Thank you so much. And for all our viewers, my thought to the to everyone is just do it. Just remember that, as Dale mentioned a moment ago, you have it all within you. It's all a matter of your perspective. You can accomplish whatever you want to if you just realize that it's all within you. And I am so grateful to our guest, Dale, as well as Rain, for being here today, and all of you for taking the time to listen. You all are a difference maker, and you all can make a positive impact by whatever you do, as long as you realize that it's all within you, and we are all connected together. So thank you again, and I look forward to having the chance to connect with you very soon for our next guest. Please stay together on this line after we stop the broadcast so you can speak directly to Dale and Rain. Thank you again. Bye-bye.